everyone! Welcome to the channel dedicated to sharing the profound insights and wisdom of Andromedan contactee Alex Collier. If you're new here, you're in for a journey that expands your mind and consciousness, bringing you closer to understanding the messages from the fifth density Andromedan extraterrestrials. For those returning, we're grateful for your continued support. Before we dive into today's enlightening content, we have a small favor to ask. If you find value in the knowledge shared in this video, please consider hitting that like button, subscribing to our channel, and clicking the bell icon so you never miss an update. Your engagement helps us amplify Alex Collier's message, allowing us to reach a larger audience with these vital messages. We'd also love to hear from you, so please engage with the comments below. Whether it's a question, your thoughts, or even just an emoji for the sake of engagement, every comment counts. We read every single comment, and your feedback is incredibly valuable to us. Additionally, if you'd like to support us further, consider giving a super thanks tip by clicking the heart with the $sign. This small gesture allows us to continue bringing you more of Alex's messages, unfiltered and directly from his lifelong experiences with the Andromedans. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy today's video.
Hi, I'm back. We are coming to you live from the living room, and this is my space. And I wasn't sure this was going to work, but it is, and it's awesome. I hope you're all well. I apologize for the hat, but you know I'm toting a cast. So showers are few, and but anyway, nonetheless, it's nice to be here. It's nice to be seen again. Thank you for bearing up with just the audio the last few weeks. I know it's not the same, but nonetheless, you know, we all have to do what we have to do to make things work, and if this continues to work, then I won't need to go to the library. I can do this from home, and there's no time limits. So, you know, it's been interesting being laid up. I've been able to answer some emails, and it's interesting. There's a lot of young people reaching out who are having a very, very tough time. They simply don't understand what's going on, and they have this from what they're telling me a personal sense of loss, and they're just wondering where they fit into the world. It's interesting. I don't know that they're getting any parenting, and for sure, whatever they're being taught in school isn't serving them well, because what they're hearing in school and what they're seeing in the world and on the news, they don't jive at all. So it's interesting, and you know, in a sense, what's happening is that it appears everybody's being red-pilled in different dosages and in different ways, but everybody has this sense, and maybe it's just because of the rising frequency, their intuitiveness is kicking in. And they know that there's something off, there's something wrong. What's interesting is that the fact that we're talking about, we'll be talking about intuition today, intuitiveness. These are gifts everybody has, and most people don't know that. They may have known it when they were young. They sensed things, or they knew who was calling the house, or they knew they were going to see a friend that day, or something to that effect. But they disregarded it. They they put it off, they ignored it. And now what's happening with the rising of the frequency, with fourth and fifth dimensional frequencies permeating the earth and passing through our entire solar system, and literally filling the field of physical reality that we know and we see. Spiritual gifts are rising to the surface. They can no longer be suppressed or ignored unless you're absolutely one of the most stubborn people in the world, where you just simply choose to ignore it. But that's getting harder and harder for everyone to do. And this is a good thing. This is a good thing, because all of these spiritual gifts that we all have, that are born to us, that we have been given from the Creator, from wherever we started from, that they've always been with us. As we re-engage ourselves, our higher self, or just ourselves, as we re-engage with ourselves on multiple dimensions, all of these gifts return. And that's personal power, you know, and literally that's what it is. It's personal power. And in reclaiming personal power, we expand our sphere of self-knowledge. Anyway, we'll get to that. There are, all around the world, there are all these self-involved agendas that are being perpetrated on the people by corporations, governments, religious organizations. They all have their little agendas. And on top of that, there's the big layer of catastrophic agendas where the world's going to come to an end. We're going to get hit by meteors. We're going to run out of air, run out of water. We're going to run out of food. It is just... But what's interesting is everyone's beginning to see through it. And the desperation of these self-involved, self-imposed agendas on the rest of the world, it's really interesting to see people beginning to really see through all these agendas. Much of what's going on in the world politically is theater. There's some basic reality to it. There are some components that are genuine, but the elaborate exaggerations that are being added to all of this is all being done on purpose to distract us, to create fear, to create stress, anxiety, because this is really the only weapon they have, because they realize that once we are awake, they completely lose all power. And as this continues, as people continue to awaken, which is our destiny, which is the destiny of humanity, is to awaken to all of these agendas and what's been going on for hundreds and thousands of years. When people stop listening, when they understand what's been going on, instead of searching outside of ourselves for answers, we pull everything back inside. And that's where the power, the growth of personal power begins. And that's a journey, that's absolutely a journey. Now, some of the things that I wanted to talk about, that I wanted I was asked to talk about is I wanted to add some more to something that we talked about the last couple of webinars, and that was the fifth density ETs and maybe some fourth. But I don't have a lot of information on the fourth density beings that are here on this rescue mission. But the fifth, I get a lot more information about because the A's are directly involved in that. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and exactly how that works. But I was also asked to mention the fact that multiple lives of reincarnation is what we would call it here, isn't just occurring here on Earth. Those of us who have multiple lifetimes, dimensional lifetimes occurring simultaneously, we are also doing the same type of cycle of reincarnation in those other dimensions. And the idea of planting that seed with you and wherever these webinars go is the idea that every single one of us is not on these dimensions to create physical matter, even though that is an end result of consciousness and intent. The purpose of exploring different lifetimes and reincarnating into different physicality and or families or soul groups is the expansion of self-awareness. And that never stops. That is consistently going and is constantly going. So as you and I are sitting here talking, there are elements of me that are crossing over from one physical form and birthing into another in different dimensions simultaneously. Because as we understand time to be linear, in the universe, in the multiverse, whatever you want to call it, the holograph of what we call existence, those lifetimes are not always linear, especially on the higher frequencies. We always assume that here in this lifetime, that okay, if I were to cross over tomorrow, I would reincarnate, in the future of time now. In other dimensions, that's not the case. You have the ability to move back and forth, the past to the present to the future. I don't always understand all that, but that's quantum physics, that's quantum mechanics. And our knowledge of it here in third density, and we know a bit about fourth, it's extremely limited. Now, having said that, and brought that up for conversation, I had the opportunity for a short time to ask some more questions about how they are managing our timelines here. And Morine pointed out the fact that when they look at time from their perspective, in other words, when they fold space, they don't fold it all the way to the point where they actually interact with the timeline. In fourth density, the Plagiarians, the Pleiadians, and many other races, when they fold space, they have to actually enter the space in order to interact with it. For some reason, that's just how it works in the fourth density. In other words, here's a point in time, they pull it to them. In order for them to actually see it, they have to interact. They have to enter the time space. They have to connect to that time, which of course alters it. It doesn't even matter if it's subtle. the fact that they've entered the space and brought their frequency to that moment of time alters it. Well, in fifth density, the A's and other star nations, when they pull a time and space, regardless of the dimension, third or fourth, when they pull it to them, they have the ability to see all that's going on there without actually entering the space or interacting with it. So what that means is they can move around without actually altering it unless they have to. Now, I thought that was fascinating. So what that means is they can pull a series of different timelines and then move forward, back and forth, to figure out where something needs to be altered or changed based on an event. For example, we know that there are fourth dimensional beings interacting with humanity. Some of them are benevolent, we would consider benevolent. Some are not benevolent. They're here to manipulate or to impose their own specific agenda for their own personal gain of some sort, whatever that is. And then there are those who are benign. They're here to observe, not necessarily to interact with humanity, but to observe and record, study the history of this event, what's happening here now. Well, those regressives, those that are here with their own personal agenda to manipulate or to enrich themselves in some way, those are being countered on the fifth density. This is also eliminating the potential for the dark ones, the regressive aliens, to create new alternate timelines. So, because there's a lot going on there, the regressives that are here, they're pulling out all the stops. The word frantic was used several times. And of course, we see that same energy, that same frequency with not only here in the United States, the deep state, but with the cabal worldwide. We see that same frantic energy because they're not only losing control, but they're virtually blind to what's really coming at them by the white hats and the benevolent forces, because they've been stripped of their ability to move back and forth in time and to project themselves to a future point, knowing that if I do this here, it's going to create a series of events that lead to them being able to consolidate power at a time in the future. With the benevolence in fifth density being able to pull areas, spots of time into the future without actually entering the space, they can see what happens. And they're doing this because they don't want to alter our path unless it absolutely has to occur, because they're responsible for that. In other words, they're showing restraint from moving back and forth. Now, at the same time that they're doing this from fifth density, we also have boots on the ground. And if you remember, I don't know, was it 6 months ago, 8 months ago, a year ago, we were talking about what's been going on underground. Isn't it interesting, the last couple of months, you're beginning to hear about the war that's going on underground? Because as the as the regressive extraterrestrials are being removed from their nests, and they're bailing, they're leaving, they're being removed. What's being left in those areas is technology, and the cabal is racing to get down there to get that technology, because now they think they can use it against the white hats or the benevolence. And it's a race, to the finish here. So there's all this friction that's going on. I can tell you with absolute certainty that the bad guys are not going to win this. And I think it's already sunk in that they know this. But now what they're really concerned about and focusing on is no longer winning, but protecting their physical existence. That's really where their focus has shifted to now. And their physical existence is certainly at risk because of all the things that they have done and that they have participated in and that they have instigated or manipulated into becoming historical fact. When dealing with these regressive extraterrestrials, the compromising of humanity, the betrayal of humanity, becoming and being a traitor to humanity for self-personal gain. They're terrorized. They're absolutely terrorized. And this is why they are behaving the way they are. And what's interesting is that whatever wealth they've accumulated, whether it's physical, monetary, knowledge, whatever wealth they've accumulated, it's gone back generations, okay? Because typically it becomes a family affair, okay? They have children, they raise them to be part of this, and they do a lot of other things to get their kids on board so that when one drops off, the next generation is there to continue. So this has been generational. For example, the families, the banking and shipping families of the old Roman Empire, and we all know who we're talking about. That's been generational, okay? The children were raised into this scenario to carry forward the duties that the family was given by this extraterrestrial hierarchy that has been ruling the planet for some time, since ancient Sumeria, Babylon, Mesopotamia, etc. The Nephilim, the half-breeds. This is what we're seeing beginning to fall apart. This is what is beginning to come to light. What we're seeing now is the collapse of secret societies. What we're beginning to see is the collapse of government illusion that they've created for years and years and years. Government, medical, philosophical, technological, these layers of control, okay, that we're all interacting with each other and literally turning humanity away from voluntary introspection, a spiritual path, to something that was completely not who we are on a soul level, spiritual level, and literally in frustrating people and causing humanity to not only lose itself in physicality, but to lose its mind, also being stuck and looking at physicality and being stuck in physicality, knowing that on some level, our souls are inside of us screaming, saying, this is not who we are. This is not what this journey is about. It is not about creating physicality. It's about spiritual growth and creating self-awareness and understanding power, spiritual power, that not only do you hold in yourself right now, but other portions of you that are in other dimensions coexisting at this moment in other times and places. All of that personal power, once aligned, is yours to use. But we have to come to terms with what that means here. A lot of power, the definition of power here on Earth, is stoked around personal wealth, which is not a bad thing. I'm not saying personal wealth is a bad thing. It's not where I'm going with any of this. With material objects, with control and power over others, such as political office, ecclesiastical titles, monarchies. There are titles. Real power has to do with intent. Now, it's one thing to have a lot of personal wealth. And if having that personal wealth and the intention of using that personal wealth is to help assist others to create personal wealth, to make changes in their lives, of their families and their loved ones, to invest in creating new technologies, to use that wealth for those purposes, to intentionally choose to help humanity. That's one thing. And that's noble and gallant work, no matter who it is. But to go after personal wealth and hoard it, and I'm going to use the the royal families, most of them anyway, the banking families, the old banking families of the old Roman Empire, the Rothschilds. Why would they need $500 trillion? They can't do anything. There's nothing to buy with it, you know? They could take half of that and literally pay off the world debt. That's fictitious anyway, but they could reset it themselves and start everybody at zero. No more personal debt. A jubilee where it's all gone. And some of these families, we don't know the names of, who are even more wealthier than that. My point is, genuine wealth has to do with personal power. Experience creates wisdom. It creates knowledge. knowledge exercised becomes wisdom. That's real power. Because then you can teach your family and others how to empower themselves. The earth experience and the reason for it initially was to experience creating physical matter and expanding self-awareness through the creation of physical matter, and then understanding that at some point all that really mattered was your focused intention and what your intention was for creating your physical reality. In other words, taking this whole purpose of being here is to prepare us for another dimension, to experience life and personal power on another dimension. Now, this is not the same for all, but for most. There are a majority of the souls here are experiencing this paradigm for the very first time. And they were trapped. They got stuck. Now, along comes a rescue mission. Here we have a 12th density that was created. In our linear time, it was December of 1993. That's when it first connected to us. But you can't look at time as linear on other dimensions, okay? It happened some other time in the past in some dimensions, and some other time in the future in some other dimensions. And I know that's confusing. But, God is nothing if diverse and historic, okay? It's just what it is. And maybe one day we'll all figure it out. I haven't yet. But when that dimension kicked in, what everybody realized was that there was a problem here. And it was decided that an intervention would occur. And this is where some of us fall back into time. Now, when I use the term fall back into time, it's happened twice. Okay, the first time it didn't go well because we weren't prepared and we didn't have all of the resources we needed to make this plan work. We didn't have enough. We didn't have enough tools from the higher frequencies. But that's no longer the case. Okay. And we're not literally just talking about Earth, but there are pockets of resistance that were here, that were put in strategic locations in what we know as the third dimensional universe, that literally grounded this physicality to where it wasn't going to evolve on its own. It was purposefully being restrained, handcuffed, chained. And the entities living in those pockets were, for the most part, completely unaware that they were trapped. Hence the intervention. Hence the introducing of higher evolved souls to come down into Earth and intervene, to bring a certain level of consciousness with them. Now, to facilitate this and to make it to the point where the benevolence were not breaking or violating any cosmic law or spiritual law, it was decided that we would all come in with full consciousness, and at some point during our evolution on Earth, that memory would go away. And then we would have to use our own wits or surround ourselves with the tools to reawaken that knowledge we came in with. So people call this the veil. Others call it forgetfulness. Whatever it is, the specific soul groups that fell back into time, we have gained our footing. We have remembered. We have surrounded ourselves with enough people in soul groups that we are now literally shifting the consciousness of the planet. Because, it only takes a percentage to trigger the awakening. And that's happening. I mean, we're there. We're there. This movement of consciousness, of awakening, of conscious intent to be free, intentionally choosing to be free, is done. This is why we're beginning to see the unraveling of this illusion that had trapped us and our ancestors for quite some time. That, in association with the intervention from higher dimensions and frequencies, those frequencies coming in, settling here, permeating, moving through, creating a shift in everyone, whether they're consciously aware of it or not. Because everyone's personal awakening is their own business. You can help, you can offer the knowledge, you can offer the assistance. The old expression, you can lead a horse to water, that's all you can do, okay? But what's interesting is that a lot of people, new souls, who have maybe not experienced fifth density or sixth or seventh or eighth or ninth, who are stuck in the physicality of their density, they're getting it. They're really, really getting it. And it's really exciting to see. And we're getting the full court press, and I know I've used this same expression in other webinars, but the major media, we're getting this full court press of just bombardment of all this negativity, all this hate, all this blame, and it is nothing but transference, folks. That's all it is. Here in the United States, the mainstream media, it's just despicable. It shocks me to this day. The things they say. And whenever I'm exposed to what they say, I just believe the complete opposite. And in 2 or 3 weeks down the road, because that's how quickly things are moving, whatever bullshit they were feeding us is exposed. But what's interesting is that they continue to do this. And I know this is going on, for the most part, all over the world. Because these structures of authority, these financial institutions, the governmental structures, or some of them, that were created specifically for the purpose of suppressing the truth and maintaining an illusion, they're all crumbling. They can't exist any longer because there's more light in the world. And that light is you. That light is you. You are bringing it here. You have called it forth. You are holding it. You are holding it in place. Everything that you do that is good, that every time you share compassion, anytime you express compassion, anytime you share love or tenderness, anytime you share and give forgiveness, you are pulling in more light to you, whether you're aware of it or not. And every decision that you make along those lines not only brings more light to you, but it expands your own personal field of power, of light, of energy, of frequency. And we can't forget that's who we are. That's the genuine us, you know. And as this happens, what happens is we begin to see the world not just through our eyes and our mind, but what's beginning to happen to many is that they are projecting out of their heart, and they're seeing the world with their heart first. And in seeing the heart first, you're seeing your world and those around you from your soul. And the more we do that, the more we recognize who our true family is, the more we recognize the path that everyone else is on. And as we move into that space, there's going to be a lot less judgment, because we're all going to understand what's been going on. You're going to understand some of the stupid decisions others have made, or the knucklehead decisions we ourselves have made in our own personal lives and in our dealings with others. There is more benevolent and positive things happening in the world today than anyone imagines. It's just, it's absolutely, I mean, it's almost like a miracle. You know, in the idiot box, television, the idiot box, you're just not going to hear any of that. You're just not. Because they have their own self-imposing agendas, self-concerning agendas. They only know themselves as being in control and manipulating others. They have no idea, at least now, how to move into this space where the rest of humanity either is or is moving to. They simply don't get it. They can't recognize it because they themselves have never actually cultivated that part of them. And it's becoming more and more clear to everyone that this is what's happening. As the A's and other benevolent fifth density star nations, as they continue to move back and forth into our future without technically entering our space unless it's necessary. And when it is necessary, they do. They intervene. They actually enter the space to change or alter an outcome or an event so that everything lines up with humanity waking up and the evolution of humanity into a higher consciousness. That's the goal here. That's not only our intention, okay, that's what we came in here to do. That's not only our intention, but their intention to intervene is exactly in line with our intention. It is not to suppress, it is not to enslave, it is to free humanity, to become a race of leaders. That's what's going on here. And only through personal power do you become a leader, in the sense that you take full responsibility, unconditional responsibility, to intend for yourself. That doesn't mean you don't love. That doesn't mean you don't share. It doesn't mean you don't give. It doesn't mean any of that. But you do it from a place of personal power because you want to, because you intend to do it. And I know some of you already know about this. But we're there. This is 2020 is going to be really interesting. It already is. And no one knows what the future actually holds because it's always in flux. And it is our conscious intent, those of us here on the planet, that are creating the future of Earth or projecting our intent into the future to draw to us that which we think we want. It's important to recognize that and understand it, because it's one thing to get assistance and help on a global scale. But ultimately, this is about us, you see. Otherwise, we're just exchanging maybe one tyrant for another. Not that I believe for a second that any of the benevolence would become tyrants. But there is an expectation on their end that humanity is going to step up into its own personal power and take control of itself. Now, I'm talking about humanity. I'm not talking about a government. I'm not talking about a church or a religion. I am talking about humanity stepping forward in declaring itself sovereign and putting governments or corporations or churches in their place to serve humanity, not to rule humanity, not to rule and manipulate and control and dictate the future of humanity for their own personal gain, but humanity stepping forward and no longer abdicating the management of our race, our planet, our resources into the hands of those we can't trust at all. Okay? So, if you look at the structures that we do have today, the corporate structure, the financial structures, the governmental structures, excuse me, all these structures need to be broken down and rebuilt in a way that they will serve humanity. It's a dog hair, sorry. To serve humanity. And we will manage that as a humanity. We clearly state what our agenda is, what we want. And then we will manage them to make sure that what it is that we want and we've projected into the future is where the structure moves towards. Okay? What does that look like? These are all conversations, excuse me, we have to have. We have to have these conversations and take them to the next level. All right? Here in the United States, we have a party, a progressive party, that wants to do this, and this. The problem is they're not really talking about it. They're telling us this is what they're going to do. They're not even telling us how they're going to do it. They're just going to shove it up our ass and down our throats and take the existing structure we have and completely collapse it. There's no planning here. There's no agenda to help and benefit everyone. It is literally nothing more than a consolidation of power into an old paradigm that's crumbling. And it's going to crumble, all right? Whether it's the left or the right. At some point, this system is going to crumble because it doesn't serve the needs of humanity, of the people. And we had a constitution that was created by the states. The people formed states, which then formed a federal government to manage the affairs of the people, not to control and manipulate the people, but it was the people who were meant to be the government. Now, this same structure, as it was originally conceived, isn't a bad idea, but it's still a work in progress. But this type of structure could work on a global level. Obviously with modifications and more thought, more knowledge and wisdom based on the past that we've all experienced. But, creating a constitution like this, let's say for the United Nations, not that I would use the United Nations because I truly believe it's as corrupt as corrupt can be. And I think they're all useless. But each country would be equivalent to a state. And whatever powers were not given to the UN or some other organization would remain with those countries, aka the states. And the states were really supposed to hold the federal government down. Well, a lot of that changed here in the United States in 1871. And then it changed dramatically in 1913 with the introduction of the private banking system known as the Federal Reserve. You guys in Europe have the EU. And that kicked in, I think, James and I were just talking about in 1971. Okay, the first president of the EU should tell you everything. Okay, that should tell you everything. So we all have the same problems here. We have the same issue, and that is that structures of power were created to suppress, control, and manipulate humanity. And now we're the resource for this very small group of elite corporations and governments. We're the resource they feed off of, when in fact, that is not how it was meant to be. So as we awaken to this, as we begin to understand and see what is really going on and has been, we have the responsibility to change it, to create something different. Now, there's a lot of things going on. A lot of things. As many self-serving political agendas are being exposed, and they are. It usually takes just a few weeks, at least here in the States. It's taking between 3 and 4 weeks before an absolute bullshit thing is coming to light. It comes to light. Or a fake story is brought to light, and everybody knows it's fake news. 3 to 4 weeks, that's about the timeline. That tells you how quickly things are moving now. We have to engage. Man, I just lost my thought. I just had a senior moment, I hate that, especially live. It's one thing on the phone, but um, oh boy. Okay, okay. As these structures collapse, it is we the people, at least on a local level, which is where you have um, the greatest ability and voice at this moment to make changes. We start on the local level, whether it's a county, um, a state level, what we have here in America. You start there, and we have to get engaged. We have to participate in this. Now, I understand that um, you have the media, and then you have political parties that are extreme and radical and um, bullying everybody. They're not going to be around long, okay? They're not going to be around long at all. Uh, that shit's coming to an end, and it's all about frequency. But now it's time to engage, to participate in some way, whether it's chat groups, whether it's, God, I hate to tell you, use social media because I don't touch any of that stuff. But a lot of people really know how to use it, and they're very good about extending their voice and their ideas using social media. Of course, you have your trolls. I know all about the trolls. Been dealing with it for 28 years. Okay? You just ignore the S. You just ignore them when you can. If you have to, you talk around them, and you talk to those who want to listen. But this is all coming. These shifts are here, and humanity. Again, this is all about us. For those of us over 40, we are setting the stage for future generations. It's fallen on us to help add clarity to the past. We have life experience. We have dealt with this structure. We have seen the creation of computers, of cell phones, of digital technology. We've experienced all of it. We've seen it. We weren't born into it, okay? Where that's all the younger generations know. You know, they take it for granted because it's been there since they were babes. Where for us, you know, we remember what it's like to lick a stamp. We remember what it was like to type a letter, to handwrite a letter. We remember what it's like to have a dial telephone, okay? Not a push button, but a dial telephone, or have no telephone and have to write a letter. We didn't have internet. We didn't have computers. Most of us grew up without cell phones. If something happened, you had to send somebody home to tell your mother or your dad, right? We remember those days. And that gives us perspective on how to integrate or not integrate certain pieces of technology. Because the reliance on technology completely dissipates self-reliance. We remember what it was like to pray. We remember what it was like to pray at dinner and to eat together as a family. We remember spending holidays together because it was important for the family to be together, to be a family, to share your best moments or your worst moments with family and friends, to be there for one another. It is to share everyone's energy in the same space. It is not the same to text someone upstairs and say, come down. Or, what are we having for dinner? Instead of actually physically engaging with the person. This is where technology is probably at its worst. Because the interaction of energy, emotion, of touch is incredibly important to who we are. Because in higher frequencies, let's say fifth density, there are no secrets. Okay? There are no secrets whatsoever. You have to be genuine. You have to be authentic because everybody sees through everybody else. And what you have is a holistic civilization. Absolutely holistic. Everybody's genuine. Everybody's there. Everybody's on time. Everybody knows what you're going through. Everybody relates. Maybe upper fourth is like that as well, or is close to that. But we're going in the opposite direction with all this technology and our reliance on the technology. It has a place, but it should never be in control, ever be in control. And I think we're doing a disservice to not have those conversations, to teach these kids not to be so reliant on technology and not teach them self-reliance. Because, before I broke my ankle, no matter where I was or where I found myself, everybody is not only walking around looking at their phone, but they're driving. One hand here, texting or looking at this as they're driving with one eye. It is just amazing to me. The addiction to the goddamn phone. You know what I mean? It's just, and we have to address this and pull these kids back. We have a responsibility as forefathers of this movement, okay, and for mothers of this movement, to bring it to their attention. Because that's not who we are. That is not who we are. If we were to fully develop our own spiritual tools, aspects, gifts that we all have, we wouldn't need the damn phone. We'd be telepathic. You wouldn't need a phone. You wouldn't need a phone at all. Okay? You wouldn't need a GPS following you around. You wouldn't have to worry about a satellite looking down from space following every move you make. Or Google mapping everything you do 24/7. Which of course they have no right to do anyway. But they do it anyhow. Okay? Because of their own personal agendas of control and manipulation. It's not who we are. It's not who we're meant to be. And a lot of these things that are occurring are being done completely without our knowledge, because once you are consciously aware of this big scenario, of the big picture of what's going on, you instinctively will take a few steps back because you're your spiritual self understands where this leads. Because our spiritual selves, which are beyond time, know a thing or two, because we've seen a thing or two, you know? And all I want to do here is to remind or refresh or to initiate that we remember that we have to come from a spiritual perspective here, because that is in fact what's happening. And the sooner we intend that, the sooner we make the effort to project ourselves from a spiritual place in the world, the faster this will happen. And the quicker our personal power will grow, and we can initiate and help others. Because this is coming one way or the other. But it doesn't necessarily have to create a lot of trauma in our lives. And at the moment, that's happening with a lot of folks. There's a lot of trauma being created, a lot of drama and trauma being created, because some people are just so incredibly stubborn that they simply refuse, or they absolutely haven't got a clue. And for those who haven't got a clue, we have to plant the seeds. We have to at least attempt to plant the seeds of being awake, of choosing to be awake, to reclaim personal power. For those of us who are just too stubborn, or those in humanity are just too stubborn, you never stop talking about it, even in their presence. And they will roll their eyes and they'll go, they'll do all those things. Right. Okay. See ya. It sinks in. And I know this for a fact, because I got kids. It sinks in. Somewhere inside, it's bouncing around, and then one day they'll hear something, they'll see something, or someone they know who they thought was just like them will say something that's very awake, and it'll trigger all the other things that have been bouncing around in there. And suddenly they'll line up and they'll have a real cohesive moment of wow. And that's all we can do. But it's on us. It's on us to do this. The energies are coming. The frequency is rising. More and more of us are becoming more spiritually grounded and centered in reality here. And as that occurs, more and more of us will be moving from the heart space and projecting into the world from the heart instead of just the mind. And the heart doesn't judge. The mind does. The mind does. The heart knows. It remembers. It feels. Okay? It's always wiser than our head will ever be. So, I would love to take some questions if there are any. I'm assuming there's some, maybe.
Yep.
Okay. I'm so excited I can do this from home now. I'm just so stoked.
Oh, so am I. I mean, it's really good. And the picture's been pretty good all night. Knock on wood. We have, I'm going to feature this one first because this is from James. And James has been running this for 97 webinars and he's hardly ever asked any questions at all. And it's interesting to me. Enki and Enlil, are they still here? Do they still live? Are they alive? Are they aging? And are they known to us on the planet, or are they completely hidden?
My understanding is that Enlil is still in the same body he was in 10, 15,000 years ago. Enki, I understand, had crossed over and then reincarnated into a younger form. Do they actually live on Earth? My understanding is they do not. They do not. I've heard a lot of stories and rumors that supposedly Enki lives inside the Earth. The A's have said no, that is simply not the case. One of his sons is here and has not done a very good job of managing the Earth at all. And I'm not sure I even want to tell you who he is.
Oh, please.
Well, in some tales, he's known as Marduk. In others, he's known as Ra. Boy, that's an involved story. Supposedly, he's the one who lives inside the Earth. And he has a real chip on his shoulder. A real chip on his shoulder. Why he allowed things to get so bad on the surface, I just simply don't know. I don't understand it. But that's one of the reasons why the Nibiruans specifically are returning to fix this. And to remove what's left of the Anunnaki that are here and have been here, living underground. Because they have the same bad temperament, the same chip on their shoulders. I do not understand all the decisions that were made, that when the Nibiru left, why they would leave specific people in charge, why they would choose to leave the half-breeds here to do what they have done to humanity over the years. Not every single one of them has been malevolent towards humanity, but those who haven't been malevolent have really tended to be off by themselves and just observe. They never really involve themselves with the affairs of man on the surface. But they have all this knowledge. They have all this knowledge of our history and who we really are and where we've come from and the history of wars and manipulation and earth changes that have occurred that would give us a real historical knowledge and a grounding as to who we are as a race or races. And all of that's been withheld and hidden from us to keep us on this freaking spiral of just like a hamster wheel of just being driven to move forward, to get ahead, and yet not really making any ground. Because we've had previous civilizations on this planet who were more advanced than we are right now. But we're driven to move towards the future. But we're not really getting anywhere, and that's because of the structures that have been put in place to keep us stuck, for lack of a better word. I've used this analogy before. over the years of the boy who walks onto a pier and he sees a man pulling out crab pots. And he puts the crabs in a bucket and then he throws it back in. And he's watching the crabs in the bucket. And the little boy says, "Sir, those crabs are going to get out. They're going to crawl away." He goes, "No, they're not going to get out because the others will pull them back in." And that's exactly what happens. The others pull him back in to make sure he doesn't get out of the pot. Well, that's what humanity's been doing unconsciously, as we've been keeping ourselves stuck with our dogma and then forcing the dogma on everyone else to remain stuck. And if we find someone who's outside the box of the dogma, what we do is we attack them, we ridicule them as being different, being weird, being psycho, whatever the terms are, and what do? Is they withdraw. Or if they're young enough, they just go into denial and they suppress those spiritual gifts or knowledge that they have, tools, and they just ignore it. We've done it to ourselves. And that has to stop. And it is stopping. It is stopping. There are a lot of people in this world who are waking up, reawakening their spiritual gifts that they've had as kids. There are many younger people coming in who have these gifts already, and they're not suppressing them. They're not buying into the dogma. And they're basically telling everybody who's different, who says that they're different, go F yourself. I know what I'm doing. I know who I am. And they're moving forward. Bravo to them. So there's a lot of valiant people everywhere at all different walks of life stepping forward. I just hope with this webinar and whatever body of work I have that's of value to anybody, to inspire them to continue to do the work and to help others step into their personal power as they themselves increase their own personal power by moving into the world and through the world now, trusting their heart space, trusting to lead with the heart as opposed with just the mind, the ears, and the eyes. Because if you look at the world today, many things that we thought were the way they are, they're not. And we know this now. Well, the reality is they never were what we thought they were. It was an illusion. It was a dialogue that they kept bombarding us with, saying, this is the way it is, this is the way it is, getting us to believe that this is the way it is. And let's face it, perception is reality. Okay? Well, now our perceptions are changing. Okay? But we have to clearly see what reality is. And we're not going to do it just with this. We have got to use our spiritual selves to truly know so that we can make this shift and remove the dogma, remove the illusions that have been fed to us that have kept us trapped. There's only going to be fear if we don't know where we're going, which is why we have a dialogue, which is why we're getting so much help. The disclosure of the Space Force and the fact that we're not alone. These are all huge components to awakening humanity, to giving us a different version, or to show us the possibilities of what humanity can become. Star Trek, Star Wars, there is no limit to intent at all. No limit whatsoever. And the fact that we create a focus with intent, then we use our compassion, our emotions to draw the physical creation to us to manifest those realities, we can make anything happen. We literally can create anything we want. We just got to know what that is. And we're going to make some mistakes, but that's all part of the process. But we have to think as a humanity, okay? Not just a singular country, not just as a singular being. We have to think as a humanity, because, whether you like it or agree or not, we're family, okay? We are all family, because we're all sharing this space. And, 90% of the people on this planet are really decent folks. They really are. And there are a lot of commonalities between us, regardless of where we live. There's a lot more to agree on than not to. It's that 10% who have really gummed up the words. But we need to see what it is that they've done. We have to acknowledge what they've done. And then we have to take that experience and move humanity in another direction, a direction that benefits everyone. That just has to be. That just has to be. You have unlimited space. You have unlimited wealth. We're multidimensional beings living simultaneous lives and reincarnating simultaneously in different dimensions. Why are people pooping in the street in San Francisco? What's up with that? It's broken. These people are broken, and there's no reason for it. There's literally no reason for it. We have to shift. We have to make a shift here. And it's beginning. We're beginning to see it. To get back to disclosure, that's all well and fine. Those of us who have been awake for a while, we know, have already known that we're not alone. Okay? It's a mathematical impossibility, and everybody agrees with that we're alone. Okay, fine. But the minute that that's absolutely obvious to everyone, humanity makes a shift just like that. It'll be a click. It'll be an aha moment for everyone around the world. Literally. Even if they were to show us what's been going on underground and who they are and what they are. Even if they were to do that. Even if they were to come totally clean about the inner earth, we would have very much the same situation, that click. We would already know we're not alone. Okay, well, that gives us a different perspective. Well, who are they? How do they live? Where did they come from? How did they get here? Can we get there? How do they educate their people? How do they raise their children? How do they eat? What do they eat? What's their food source? What technology do they have that they use every single day? Do they pollute their environment? Well, obviously, if they're coming here, they're not, because they have very advanced technology. Okay? Most of the warfaring species that are out there are being forced to come around because their sphere of influence is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. They now have to make a paradigm shift themselves of controlling others to being completely self-reliant and stepping into their own personal power and becoming part of a community, planetary community, Star Nation community. Okay, they have to learn to go along and get along with everybody else, because that nonsense is not going to be tolerated any longer. Okay. The purpose of the 12th density that was created back in 93 was to unitize all the dimensions below it. That's what it's doing. And I told you that back in 93, that's what it was doing. It was connecting everything together. Okay? Well, that's what's going on here. We're the caboose, though. Okay? We're in the caboose. But as far as time goes, this is happening very, very quickly. You know, in 5 years, you may not even recognize the world or the planet in a good way. In 10 years, it could be absolutely phenomenal. In 25 years, you know, it could be paradise. It really could be for everyone. For everyone. You know, and it's our responsibility to step up. Whether you want to or not, you're going to. So you might as well engage. You might as well participate in this. You know, and like I said earlier, those of us over 40, we are responsible to step up and at least have a conversation with the younger generations and say, look, we know stuff. Don't think we're out of touch, we're idiots, because we're not. We're really not. We know stuff. We've lived it. Okay? We know what it was like without that. And if all that were to go away, what's going to happen to your fuzzy little head? If you don't have your internet, your cell phone, your Twitter, you know, what's going to happen to you? Are you going to lose your mind or what? You know what I'm saying? You know how to grow a plant? It's just, you know, it's just simple stuff that most of this younger generation hasn't got a clue about. And it's a disservice to them to not install some of that, to reintegrate them with our society, with the earth itself. A lot of them talk a big game. They do. Because they hear all their friends talk about it, or the Progressive Party talk about it. You know, but most of the progressives aren't doing anything that they're talking about. In fact, they're doing just the opposite. The reason they talk about this is they try to inspire an emotional response to garner more control, more power. And it's both, and it happens everywhere in politics. It's what it's about. Okay? We need to shed the light on that. We do. We have to change the paradigm. And we have to step up. I assure you, we have to step up. They're not going to come in and save us. They're going to give us a hand. They're going to offer knowledge. They're going to offer mentoring to get us through these rough stages, to show us how to make these leaps, okay, with the least amount of disruption or tragedy. But we got to do the work no matter what. We have to do the work. And we should want to. We should want to. We're so invested in this in our race anyway. You know, the potentiality for humanity on this planet is literally unlimited. We're awesome. We just don't know it. We're the last to find out. We're the last to find out just how awesome we are. You know? Okay. I kind of rattled on there. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So, it's your show, you know. From Martin C., and this is related to the last question. Hello, Alex. Once again, I will bother you with a question about inner Earth. First of all, there is some confusion about how thick the crust or shell is. Some say 3,000 kilometers or 1,900 miles. Others say it's only about 600 to 800 miles. Do you have any knowledge on this? Also, you've described how the aged ship sometimes appeared larger on the inside as compared to how it looked on the outside. Could this be truth for the inner Earth as well? And do the different dimensions or densities also play into this? Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Martin. That's a great question. There is some fourth dimensional life here. There is some visiting fifth dimensional life. And I preface that by saying it's visiting. It is not indigenous to our holograph, fifth dimensional, but fourth is, okay? And that's another conversation, webinar. As far as the inner earth goes, in the crust, the areas where it's the thinnest, let's say 800 miles, I'll talk in miles, okay? Where it's the thinnest, about 800 or so miles, is at the deepest parts of the ocean. Other parts are 1,900 miles. Some are 3,000 miles. In the Pacific, specifically, there are areas there where it's as thin as 600 miles, the crust between the inner earth and the bottom of the ocean. Up at the North Pole, it's also very, very thin. It's not the thickest. It's anywhere between 600 and 700 miles thick. However, the lip, okay, there is existence just several hundred miles beneath the lip. So it's not like you have to travel 1,000 miles, but there is life. However, it's very protected, it's very secure, and no one really goes in or out unless they're supposed to. Okay. As far as Antarctica, I don't have any specific information to offer you on that. There are others who have knowledge to share on that, and I'm okay with that. The Earth is not flat, and I know this is going to be so disappointing to the flat earthers. It's just not, and I'm sorry to tell you that. I know you're going to continue to believe what you want. That's fine. But the Earth is a sphere. It's not a perfect sphere, but nonetheless, it's a sphere. And there is a gravitational point inside the center of the Earth where it collects electrons, which creates what we would call, or would be perceived to us, a second sun. And there's a lot of other things that I don't know about. There is a great deal of fourth dimensional, higher spiritual energy in the inner earth than between the crust of the earth, regardless of where it is, or on the surface. Which is interesting. And it's also interesting that they haven't really intervened to help the surface. So I don't know if there's a specific agenda. I don't know if there's rules or regulations as to why they haven't participated. I don't know exactly why that is. But at some point, at least for me, instead of trying to figure out what I can't figure out, all you can do is just move on and move forward with what you know and what you can do and how you can make a change. you know, and that's all we can do. Earth is a holograph, and that holograph, in many respects, is a kaleidoscope. It's exactly what it would look like. And depending upon your perspective, life is going to look one way to you. And when you change your perspective, it looks another way to you. And as you change your perspective throughout your life, you bring in different types of people into your life, okay? Because your vibration changes based on your perspective. There's an old saying that says, you know, we all live two lives. The life we learn with, and then the life we live with after that. You know, having the knowledge, and not making all the mistakes of the life you learn with. So the life you live with after that is where you've created a perspective or multiple perspectives, and you've integrated them into one, which is how we get to see the big picture. You know, it's interesting. Existence is very, very interesting. But again, the entire purpose of all of this is to know thyself, to create more self-awareness. And for those of us who came here on a rescue mission, we're all going to have great stories to tell. When we finally go to our home ports, you know, and return to those places which we on a soul level call home. Earth has been an amazing experience for me. I absolutely love her, and in most respects, I really love and care about humanity. It's tough going, though. It really is. It's tough going. It's not for the faint of heart, I can tell you that. It can be a very, very difficult school. But at the same time, where else do you get to experience such extreme emotions and such deep empathy and compassion and love? It's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. It really is. And it remains so. It remains so. We just have to set it on a path that makes it more healing for a majority of the people on the planet. That's what we have to do. It could be an incredible place of healing. We just we have to take it out of the hands of the cabal and put her back on a path that's authentic for everyone here. All right, JP, I'm ready for another question. Martin, I hope I have a question.
I hope so. I think so. So this is from Emmanuel Cruz. Has anyone read or have you read the 1947 Alien Interview in Roswell by the Army nurse Matilda McElroy by Lawrence Spencer? He says it explains in details what the Andromedans are doing.
No. I've heard about it, and I know there's a great deal of controversy surrounding the story, but no, I haven't. I purposely don't read other people's material. And in so doing, I don't have a critical opinion one way or the other. Because I'd like to think that everyone's here doing the very best they can. And everyone has their own voice. Everyone has their own perspective. I have, for the most part, stayed away from talking about other folks. I have talked about other races and shared what I've been told about them. But no, I have not. I have not read that work, nor do I want to.
Okay, this one's from Pilotag. Hi, Pilotag. Hi, Alex. Hello, Happy New Year. Do you know what Andromeda and Zenate mean? The names.
The names are just names. They're labels to us. The meanings in their holographic language has no equal in the English language or any language on earth. In other words, there's no word here that could even come close to describing. For example, Morinet's name. His actual name, there is no word for it on earth. He chose a name for me so that I would have a way to address him instead of, hey, you, or, you know what I'm saying? Okay, or to be able to reference him with the knowledge. The same with Visayas. Visayas' name apparently is even harder, or was even harder to pronounce, or could have even been pronounced had there been an equivalent language here on earth. They chose those names so that I would have a way to identify, because they understand here we have names that we use as labels. And it was comfortable for me so that when I was addressing a question, I could refer to them by name. Not that they needed it because they're telepathic, but when reference their work or their words here to everyone else, I would have a point of reference. You see, telepathic societies are very different than we are here. We use labels, and if we were telepathic, we wouldn't need a name. We could project into someone said, hey, I'm talking to you. And they would turn around and go, what do you want? Or they would think it, but we don't have that here amongst the general population. We don't have that ability is latent in all of us. It's asleep. In other words, we have the ability. We're just not exercising those muscles yet. So, no, there is no name or meaning here on Earth for what that means.
Okay. This is from B. Dale. I think it's Björn. I have asked this in an earlier webinar, but I ask again. Will the regressive ones that have been Earth humanity for a long time get arrested and brought to justice, even if they try to flee this galaxy?
My understanding is there's no fleeing the galaxy. I think in our perspective, the way we look at things, yes, they will be arrested. Many of them already have been. How do they deal with that? That's a really good question. What does arrest look like to them? Will they just be allowed to run free without any rehabilitation of some sort to do this again? No, they will not. No, they will not. There is a real, genuine, conscious shift occurring in our galaxy. And the intent is to unify all living things in the galaxy with the intent of creating unity, regardless of the dimensions, but to create a unity of consciousness and knowledge throughout the galaxy. My understanding of what that means is, here we are on third, moving into fourth and to fifth. The knowledge contained in fourth and in fifth will be shared with us as we begin our progression forward. As we begin our progression to fourth, the knowledge that we don't have or can't understand in fifth and sixth will be shared with us, so that there is a unity of knowledge and information, so that we understand the big picture. The idea is to create a knowledge base of all the dimensions and all the races and the wisdom with everyone. Now, it's one thing to have the knowledge, it's another thing to experience it. So if we have knowledge of what an existence is like, let's say in fifth or sixth density, it'll just be knowledge. We won't actually be able to experience it ourselves unless we're physically present. But we would know what to expect. We would know traditional behavior on those dimensions and how to act appropriately. And I think that's the purpose. You know, there's going to come a time where Earth is going to graduate and is going to be welcomed into the family of star nations in our galaxy. Now, there are a lot of different councils. The galaxy is pretty vast, and some areas of it are incredibly thriving with life, conscious life. Man, I haven't talked about this in a long, long time. What that graduation looks like, what that initiation of Earth, once she reaches a specific level of conscious living, in harmony, what happens is we would be presented to a collection of other star nations. We would then be introduced as a planet, as a solar system, and as a race to the rest of the galaxy. And what occurs is there are many hundreds of years of preparation for this event. And humanity would be presented not only with our different cultures, but also many different life forms that we have on the planet, such as whales, dolphins, megalodons, many different other species that we have that that are extinct on the surface, but may in fact be living in the inner earth, hint, still alive, would be taken on starships to a specific place where we would be introduced, and it would be like a parade where we would be introduced and we would present ourselves and our cultures and our life, our ecosystem, to the rest of the world, to the rest of the galaxy. And this is, of course, after we were invited and accepted into this council of the galaxy. That's pretty much how it works. And at that point, we know them, they know us. There has been a lot of mentoring. There has been a lot of exchange of knowledge and maybe some technology. But we do this voluntarily and with great pride, because we have a lot to offer. Okay? Each civilization is unique in its own way. Earth is very unique in the sense that we've had so many different races passing through, moving through our solar system, because we're at one of the tail ends of one of the wings of our galaxy. We're pretty much for a very long time out in the boonies. And our culture that we've developed through different star nations and events that have occurred here and interaction with other races, whether it's Lemuria, Pangea, Atlantis, the Nibiru, the Pleiadians, the Syrians, the Tao, the reptilians, all of those cultural things and their protocols that they forced on humanity through our interaction with them and our enslavement, or having to live under their reign or protocols of behavior. All of those are part of our history now, and part of many different cultures on the planet. So we're unique. We are not the run of the mill in any way, shape, or form. Not to mention the fact that spiritually, we are quite the unique bunch. You have 11th density spiritual beings living in third dimensional bodies, reincarnating over and over and over again. 10th, 9th, 11th, 7th, 8th, 6th, all the way down. Here, participating in the creation of this holograph, which we call our Earth. They're aware of that. You see, they know about all the stuff we don't know about, that we're just coming to figure out now or to learn. They already have all that knowledge. Which is why we have such an armada of assistants here. Because we're different. We're unique. We're like this compendium of the best and the worst. Okay. But as that begins to harmonize and balance is created between those extreme polarities, which is already occurring, by the way, as that begins to come together, our potentiality as a species, as a race, is literally off the charts. Literally off the charts. And future generations of Terrans are going to be absolutely remarkable beings. And we'll have a lot to offer in knowledge and in experience, especially with the movement of emotions. Balanced, it is the strongest creative force in the universe. Emotion, but it's got to be balanced, and it has to work with a focused intent. And these are all things that they've purposely hidden from us to keep us under control, to make sure we wouldn't get out of that crab pot, by keeping us at each other. So the potential is remarkably bright. It's just, when I think about it, I see a sun. I see all of humanity shining like a sun, like a star. I couldn't be prouder, and I'm already proud of us. Frustrated, but I'm already proud of us for all the shit we've been through, and here we are still plodding along, trying to get it right, to do it right, having children, raising families, doing all the right things. We haven't given up on each other, We're awesome. We're awesome. We're the last to figure it out. Okay, one more question.
Yeah, because we're nearly 2 hours here.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. Ah, yeah, here we are from Jane. Thank you, gentlemen, for your help. Alex, when do you feel we'll have a mass class lesson on the truth of our Earth's history?
Great question. Great question. I wouldn't be surprised if we had a major revelation uh, about a period of Earth history here in the next 6 to 8 months. It's been hinted. It's been hinted that something would be uncovered that would literally force the rewriting of all of our history, of all Earth history. And when I gave an example, I said, well, what about the pyramid area of China or the Grand Canyon, because there's a lot there, or Africa, that Anunnaki city that was built 300-400 years, 1,000 years ago, or the Eye of Africa. Why hasn't that been explored? And Hem didn't quite answer me, other than to say that those were all very valid areas that could rewrite history. So maybe it's going to be all or one, or they're all going to happen simultaneously, or one will lead to the other. I don't know, but those are the areas that I've been paying attention to since I've heard about them, that have intrigued me the most. And of course, those are areas where they don't really want us to talk about. So of course, that's where I would want to know is, okay, well, we don't want to talk about that, or they'll deflect your attention away from it, which of course intrigues me even more. So those are the hot spots that I'd be looking for any kind of a major revelation. Any one of those would change what we think we know. At first, I thought maybe it was Bosnia, the pyramids of Bosnia, which is remarkable. They're older than the pyramids in Egypt, hands down. But again, that's an area that doesn't get a lot of coverage. They don't want to talk about it because it doesn't fit the narrative. Well, the narrative is being blown apart. So any one of these could come to the forefront and, start the unraveling of Earth's history, the narrative of it anyway, because each one in its own right is absolutely extraordinary and offers a lot of knowledge to Earth, to humanity. And that's what it's all about now. It's we have to catch up. We have 400 years of knowledge and spiritual growth to catch up on. That's how far we've been held back and suppressed. They've suppressed 400 years of knowledge from us to keep us spinning in circles. So, in maybe 25 to 50 years to recover that much knowledge. So when it starts, it's going to be fast and furious. The idea, however, though, is as we absorb the knowledge, we at the same time have to protect ourselves from a spiritual place. So we have to remember that we're spiritual beings. That's the balance. Spirit and physicality, that's the balance. Okay, when you become too physical, you lose the spiritual perspective and you become an idiot and you do stupid things, you become destructive. As long as you retain that spiritual center to you, you have a good, clean perspective on physicality and you operate from a space of heart and spirit. you know, and that's important. That's the balance. That's the balance. And we've lost that. We've lost that. But it's coming back. It's absolutely coming back. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so excited I got to do this from home. And so it looks like we're back. For those of you who sent me Christmas cards and well wishes, thank you. I have those who sent gifts. I have a stack of thank you cards to go out. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. I can hobble to the bathroom without my crutches now, so we're getting there. It's all good. It's all good. And I just want you to know, thank you for supporting our little webinar. And, you know, and supporting everyone in the exopolitics community, trailblazers, one and all. And we're getting there. We're getting there. And it's exciting times ahead. You know, pay attention to the news, but don't take it to heart. A lot of it is theater, melodrama, or just outright bullshit. Okay? We're not going to have a world war. Not going to happen. And we're not going to get hit with a meteor unless they want it to happen. Okay? So, just be inspired. Live your life inspired. It's all good. Okay? It's all going to be good. I love you. James, JP, thank you for everything you do for holding this together. And I couldn't do this without you. So, folks, I love you. Talk to you soon. Take care.
Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you found it insightful, please like the video, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon so you don't miss out on future updates. If you have any questions relating to today's video, please also leave them below. We read all the comments and take on board what our viewers have to say about Alex Collier's work. Remember, your support helps Alex Collier's knowledge and the messages from the Andromedans reach more people. If you'd like to support the channel even more, you can give us a super thanks tip by clicking the heart icon with a $sign. It really helps our team bring you more content. Also, be sure to visit alexcollier.org to sign up for our regular email newsletter. It's the best way to stay updated with the latest news, exclusive content, and upcoming live webinars. For the latest insights from Alex Collier, check out alexcollier.live. And if you want to explore over 250 past webinars, head over to alexcollier.tv. Thank you for being a part of this journey and supporting Alex Collier's work. We couldn't do this without you, and we're genuinely grateful for your support. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the vast mysteries of our universe. If you would like to see the Andromedan contactee Alex Collier live via video stream, we hold a live online seminar every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. For more information on upcoming live webinars, please visit alexcollier.org.